Something I have noticed and had several conversations in my sessions this week about is this sweet spot of of coming together with inner child and this adult version of ourselves when we're in the middle of the transformation process and doing the healing work. And the visual I get with this and that I've used to describe and validate back to the people I work with what they're coming in kind of noticing is this. When you haven't done the healing work, or maybe if you're earlier on into that journey, I view it as being on this teeter totter where there will be these pockets where the inner child wounds will surface and will be in the driver's seat of the vehicle. And then that swings back to the other side, and there we feel like our composed adult version of ourselves is in the driver's seat. And those two parts of ourselves are almost in like this mutually exclusive, not coexisting. You don't see them both at the same time. There's a lack of integration. There is no teamwork, no collaboration between this adult version of ourselves and those inner child wounds. So, it's kind of like when the woundedness comes out in this emotionally reactive, kind of way, we've swung up on that teeter-totter. And when we're up here, there's no room for our adult selves to be also at the table. It's this extremes, the pendulum swinging. There's no room for the coexisting of both of these pieces of ourselves at the same time. The dynamic of both parties to be sitting at the table. And once this healing journey really starts to unfold and we are addressing the inner child wounds, what is happening is the adult version of this person who's in the room with me has now become the person that is ready to address that inner child. That version of us that was wounded from childhood, who was unable at the time to feel that we could protect ourselves, learned helplessness, all these things, looking for somebody to jump in and rescue and save. And at this point, we are esoterically collapsing the time-space barrier as this grown version of yourself who is now arrived at readiness to hold this space for your own inner child is the one reaching back in time to create that safety, that protection, the space for this version of ourselves that may have been stunted, shut down, suppressed, quieted, left in the dark for way too long, is now being saved by this version of yourself. And so in that healing journey, the visual is, rather than having these moments where we are feeling like, oh, I'm fully healed, I'm at one with myself, I am this evolved, version of myself that's not any longer experiencing any pockets of mm, inner child woundedness. It's not that. It's not that, right? But you're coming more into integration, which means that teeter totter of, there's only room for one of us here. And so it's going to be you or it's going to be me. And we're going to see some oscillation in which version of us is at the table, depending on what's going on, the context, the triggers, the external stressors in our lives, right? This was the pattern that previously existed before we got to this level of transformation in our healing journey. And now we are noticing that teeter totter come into balance and equilibrium. And this inner child version of ourselves is working together with this grown adult version of ourselves who is ready to be that space holder, right? To do the saving, the healing, the repairing in our relationship to ourselves. We are repairing relationship to self. We are so in sync, this version of us now and this inner child. There is space for both to coexist. We are so attuned to both of these versions that without words, just with eye contact, we are syncing up our movements to allow this teeter-totter to come to stillness and balance while we very carefully stand up and walk to the middle to hold hands and jump off and start walking hand in hand together. And when we're walking hand in hand, there is a self-compassion, self-love, grace, room for the inner child to be more steadily with us. I want to say, like, at all times, really, this is space to have this to have this wholeness, this journey of wholeness begin to evolve, to progress. And while you are journeying hand in hand, you may notice still that feeling of there's two of you. In terms of, I'm very aware of the voice and the energy and the sentiments that comes from inner child. And I'm aware of these pockets of dissonance because you no longer are functioning in a manner where there's only room for one of us here at the table, and you now are walking hand in hand. There can be moments through that journey of healing, through that transformation process, where you can feel, I don't want to say more wounded, but almost more aware of that inner child, more aware of the presence of that on a daily basis, more aware of some of the unhealed pockets and the dissonance. And that's not because you're regressing. That's not because anything is worsening. That's because we now have arrived at such a level of safety and readiness to hold ourselves more fully that this growth work, this let it rise into the light, this I have created such a safety in myself and my environment and with the therapeutic support that I am comfortable and confident and capable and empowered to hold hands with this inner child and to say, you belong here. I'm not going to let you go, right? When something feels a little tricky or, triggering, I'm going to make sure you know that I'm not going to let go of your hand and leave you in the dark. And this is a sign of the repairing in this deep connection to your inner child. And when you repair that, eventually, as you get that image of these two versions of yourself, when you're 5 or 7 on here on this side, and now when you're this age, I'm just gonna say like 35, right? On this side, 5 or 7 on this side, and y'all come together, hold hands, jump off, and walk forward. Eventually, those two outlines overlap and merge together. And that is when you've come to this space in your healing where you really have arrived at divine union and wholeness within yourself, which leads to some of the other things that I talked about, I think, in one of the last sessions, about I'm no longer experiencing loneliness within myself. There's no longer dissonance. But to get to that point in time, we want to normalize and recognize that there needs to be space held for these two versions of ourselves to coexist and walk alongside each other. That is an essential part of this healing journey. And that is the conversation that I have had with many clients this week. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think there's a piece of it when you come to the outlines of these two versions of yourselves becoming so integrated that it happened while we were just naturally walking the walk. And it takes a minute, I think, to come to realization of that wholeness. And what a time for celebration when you arrive at that place. And I had an energy healing session. Actually, I think this analogy came up in a couple of sessions, which was, the energy of this person's journey as they're walking alongside themselves in this type of a way and showing up for themselves. That's what it feels like. Like you are showing up for yourself. You are teaching yourself in all these ways that you are committed to moving in a way of self-honoring and pouring into yourself and doing this healing work that you deserve to do. You're showing up for yourself. And these people can be in a pocket where it feels like there's dissonance still, and it feels like there's tension. It feels like there's struggle, and there's still old energy floating around of some, am I all right? Am I doing okay? Am I doing this well enough? Like I'm dipping into these pockets that feel like I'm not doing well. And it's like you're dipping into the pocket that you're meant to dip into because you're coming into union with yourself. You're not teeter-tottering in between these two different fragmented states. You are showing up with yourself inside of that. This is no longer survival skill or trauma trigger. This is revisiting with safety. This is the difference in some ways between re-traumatizing versus desensitizing, processing, a coming together and integration and a true healing from the inside out, from the roots up, right? That allows this return home, return to self. And so in that energy, I notice that tension where it doesn't always feel good to be in that final push of the transformation. That can feel heavy. That can feel like I'm in endurance, you know, I'm enduring, I am persevering. It's taking everything I have in me to journey through this unknown territory to arrive at this wholeness. And when I am inside of the energy that is coming from that person's spirit team, whoosh, full body chills. Yeah, I'm tapping in the energy right now. And it is cheering. It is cheering. It is nothing from their spirit team is feeling heavy, is feeling like, oh, this is like difficult. The energy from the spirit team is 100% absolute celebration. And the visual they give me when somebody's on that journey is somebody who's just finished a marathon, you know, and their legs are wobbly and they're like dripping in sweat and they've got their, you know, last 50 steps to the finish line, and their spirit team is all around them, covering that stretch of the last 50 feet, screaming, let's go! Cheering, like, yes, you got it, that's our girl, yes, like triumph energy to it. You're on path. You're so on path. Such celebration, hearts drawn around, encouragement from your angels, from your spirit guides, from your loved ones when they see you hand in hand, this version of yourself with the inner child, 5 or 7 year old version of yourself. That is it. That is the journeying to the divine wholeness, oneness, worthiness, peace that emulates from the inside out, that you deserve, that you've always deserved, that really transforms your life, like I said, from the inside out. And once you've reached that union, once you've reached that transformation, the visual is this cocoon where the caterpillar has transformed and is a butterfly with the most beautiful wings. And the body memory is, I'm a caterpillar. And so there's still some lingering fear as we don't realize where we have just arrived. As this caterpillar, see, Freudian stuff, as this beautiful butterfly, gorgeous wings, so capable of flight, is clinging for dear life on to the outside of that cocoon that it just emerged from. And it stays there for some time. And it takes a little minute until this realization of what it is settles in.